Hey everybody, this is Dr. Daniel Davila. I wanted to shoot this video today to share some thoughts I had regarding recent announced changes by the American Heart Association regarding how we go about diagnosing somebody with high blood pressure. So, the American Heart Association announced on Monday that they were changing the guideline criteria for diagnosing people with hypertension, high blood pressure. For those of you that aren't aware, when you go to the doctor and they're reading out your blood pressure, it's typically read off as a fraction. It's this over this. Now, prior to the announcement on Monday, what was considered to be a normal blood pressure was 120 over 80 or less. Now, that 120 is what's called the systolic blood pressure. That's the pressure through your blood vessels when your heart is pumping. The 80 is considered to be the diastolic blood pressure. That's the pressure in your heart or your blood vessels when your heart is relaxing. There's still pressure in your blood vessels at that point. As I said, prior to Monday, 120 over 80 or less was considered to be normal blood pressure, healthy blood pressure. Now, as of Monday, when the American Heart Association made its announcement, 120 over 80 now qualifies as the low end of elevated blood pressure, pre-hypertension. What has also changed is that stage 1 hypertension, high blood pressure, went from being a systolic pressure of 140 down to 130. Now, that may not sound like a very big change, but with the numbers coming out, the statistics that are being announced, this means we went from a population having a high blood pressure of 32% of Americans up to 46% of Americans now being eligible to be diagnosed with high blood pressure. That's 30 million Americans now eligible to be diagnosed with high blood pressure overnight as a result of this change in the guidelines. Now, they're saying that this is going to result in only a very minor uptick in the number of people who are being diagnosed medication or drugs for high blood pressure. They're saying it's only going to go up by maybe 2%. Now, that remains to be seen. We'll see how that all shapes up, but there are some things that need to be considered here, things that I really hope to raise awareness of for you here with this video. Now, I got a dose of this myself when I went to the doctor this morning for a checkup. Got my results right here, and my blood pressure was read off to be 132 over 88. Now, under the new guidelines, that means I am eligible to be diagnosed with high blood pressure, possibly looking at being prescribed medication to treat that high blood pressure. Now, oddly enough, this didn't come up during the rest of my visit. The nurse read it out, it was written down, and then it wasn't discussed in the course of my visit. So there are things that need to be considered with this. You really have to take into account what is responsible for your blood pressure. Because the blood pressure itself is simply an effect. It is not the cause. What I mean by that is 132 over 88, my blood pressure at that time, was the effect of something in my environment or in me that caused my blood pressure to wind up at that level. Now, I know I get a little bit stressed when I go to doctor's offices. I'm not going to lie. When I walk in there, I'm a little bit concerned about what are we going to talk about? What are they going to find? Am I okay? Am I as okay as I think I am? But you got to be objective about these things. You got to bite the bullet, get in there, get yourself checked out, and just see how things are really working for you. But that being said, what that means is that I'm going into the situation already stressed. And when you're stressed, it's normal for your blood pressure to go up. The good thing about these new guidelines is they do emphasize that before you're diagnosed with high blood pressure, you have to have had an elevated reading at least 2 different visits on at least 2 separate occasions. You can't just diagnose somebody with high blood pressure based off of one measurement. That really doesn't make sense. Again, it's because of the fact that there are so many different variables that are at play when blood pressure is changing, whether it's going up or it's going down. I was doing some research prior to putting this video together, just kind of reinforce my knowledge on this. And the variety of things that affect your blood pressure are staggering. Number one, like I said, is stress. Think about this. If you're somebody who works in a job where you are chronically stressed, chronically trying to meet deadlines that just, they wear you down, you might get high blood pressure. You might get headaches from things like that. Another thing is diet. If you're eating something with too much salt, if you're eating too many processed carbs, not enough stuff for good gut health, that is something that can start to impact your blood pressure, driving it up. By the way, as far as diet is concerned, in case you aren't aware, it was announced 2 weeks ago that the FDA was actually forced to remove soy from their list of heart-healthy foods. So if you're a vegan, if you're a vegetarian, if you're somebody who frequently eats soy products or soy, you need to be aware it's no longer considered to be a heart-healthy food, so keep that in mind. Other things that affect blood pressure are body positioning. looking over some of the research, it says that when you are standing, your blood pressure is at its lowest. This is actually the reason why, if you've been laying down for a long time, if you've been sitting in a chair for a long time, if you suddenly go to stand up, your blood pressure is going to drop. And that might be the reason that you start to feel a little bit woozy, a little bit out of it. So be aware of that. And your blood pressure is highest when you are lying supine, lying on your back. Age can be a factor in how your blood pressure is measured. Being overweight, obviously, we have a real problem with overweight and being obese in this country. And unfortunately, that's going to drive things like high blood pressure and cardiovascular disease. Smoking, another thing that's has a huge impact on blood pressure. Chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes. If you aren't aware of this, diabetes has a tendency to go hand in hand with cardiovascular and cardiometabolic diseases like heart disease, high cholesterol, high blood pressure. And then another very important factor for blood pressure and how it's impacted by your daily life is your posture. Now, in 2007, the University of Leeds neuroscientists from the University of Leeds released a study showing that when somebody's posture is altered negatively, especially when their head is starting to come forward on their shoulders, they've got too much of a hunched back, what's happening is that is actually doing damage to the way the muscles and the cells in the neck and the upper body communicate with the brain. And now, because your body is sensing this kind of stress or this turbulence in the way you're moving, your body may elevate your blood pressure to compensate for that. So I say all these things to raise awareness of the fact that before you accept a diagnosis of high blood pressure, before you allow that label to be put on you, you really need to think about what are the factors that are involved that are causing your blood pressure to be at that level. Again, the blood pressure reading is an effect. It is not the cause in these situations. If you go and you solely work on lowering the blood pressure through medication without regard for what caused that elevation, you're going to run into some major problems because your body does not make mistakes when it elevates your blood pressure or it causes any other kind of symptom. What it is doing is it is making an intelligent adaptation to your lifestyle, to your environment, to the stressors that you're subjected to, what you've got going on inside of your body, what you're putting into your body. So again, you don't want to go off and jump the gun on getting treatment to lower your blood pressure without taking into account, well, what caused my blood pressure to be elevated in the first place? And what do I need to do to eliminate those stressors that elevated it to begin with? Again, it's kind of cliche, but it's like if your check engine light were to come on in your car and you just put a piece of tape over the light. Now, in a way, you may have actually solved the problem. The check engine light is no longer visible. It's no longer there. But if you really want to get to the root of the problem, you've got to take into account, well, what has your car been going through? What is your car designed to do? What have you been having it do? What kind of things have you been putting into it? Have you been using high quality oil, fluids? Do you have the tire pressure where it needs to be? Is the alignment on? Because those are all the things that can affect that check engine light coming on. But the check engine light itself is only the effect. It is not the cause. Same again, blood pressure being elevated or even blood pressure being too low is an effect of some other kind of cause going on in your life. So I just wanted to raise some awareness of this. Be aware that this may be happening for you. If you're going to visit your doctor anytime soon, you may now fall in the category of high blood pressure. You may be having a conversation with them about getting on medication to treat that elevated blood pressure. And I just hope you keep these things in mind as part of your thought process when you're making these health decisions. I'm going to make a couple of recommendations for you here. Number one, those things that I mentioned, stress, diet, body composition, age, well, obviously you can't affect age, but body weight, smoking, chronic diseases. If you know that you have those things going on, those are things that are actually within your control to start working on getting it under control, getting your blood pressure down, getting your body back to being healthier. If you want and you need help with that and you feel like maybe you're falling short based on who you're referencing or who you're talking to at this time, I'm going to refer you to the Institute for Functional Medicine. Their website is www.ifm.org, Institute for Functional Medicine. The reason I'm recommending you check them out is because of the fact that this is kind of a new way of looking at medicine and how the body functions, a little bit more of a holistic approach. If you're already on medication for high blood pressure, this might be a good time to look into getting a second opinion if you're willing to do the work to change your lifestyle and get your body back to being healthier with less need for medication. I mentioned something very important as far as posture. Now, be aware of the fact that it only takes about 10 minutes of standing or sitting in the same position before your body's support structures, your core, your abdominals, they actually start to shut down, and you can actually start to wind up in a slumped or hunched over posture. And if this is something that's happening for you on a routine basis, you're going to reach a point where it's no longer as simple as just standing up straight. Do a couple of exercises. It's no longer going to be that easy to change your posture for the better, so that not only is your blood pressure not being impacted, but your overall health is being maintained at the highest possible level. You're functioning at the best to avoid chronic degenerative illnesses over time. Again, I'm going to refer you to idealspine.com. If you have any questions about what's happening with your posture, if you're concerned about what's happening with your posture, or even if you have high blood pressure and you're wondering, is my posture impacting that in some kind of way? Idealspine.com is where you can find a qualified corrective chiropractor to help you address those issues and get your spine back in proper working order. All right. Thank you again for watching this video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I'd be happy to converse with you on those things. If you liked this video, if you felt like it was useful and provided you some valuable information, please like it, share it, tag a friend. It really helps me if you help to spread this message and we raise awareness for these issues. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.